here, everyone. Welcome back to Made in Asia, the podcast about entrepreneurs and creators in the experience and transformation economies in Asia. Today, I'm very blessed here in Bel Air, Hong Kong Island, with Tamsin Nugent, our second Nugent on the show.
Crazy.
An art consultant, a former art gallery owner, also a sustainability champion, and a relentless innovator, I may dare call you.
Thank you.
I made that up. But it's probably true. And you're an achiever of your own dreams.
Yes, on the way.
On the way.
Yes.
Aren't we all?
Uh-huh.
Right? That's a good start. So 2021, so far an interesting year, I guess. How has the pandemic and all that been for you, or the art scene in general? As an art consultant, you probably have more insights into that space. So we hear about the food and beverage scene. Previous guests on the show talked about that. How is it in the art scene? How is COVID and pandemic level impacting that space?
Well, I must say, in terms of the whole art scene, I can't speak for everybody because I have been a little bit on the periphery for a while now. My business is very much interested in the online world for art,
right,
and also the world of innovation for art, which is definitely on the periphery of the art scene at large. And so for us last year, it was an opportunity to really get creative with what we have already created, which is an online platform for customization of fine art. And what that showed me was that people aren't really there yet. Everybody's looking online to buy art. And so I would imagine lots of online e-commerce sites have done quite well. I think the gallery scene has struggled because a lot of galleries don't have a great online presence. And so that's been a bit tricky. Yet really established galleries with great client bases, they're probably ticking along just fine. But for us, I really noticed getting a message out there to ask people to do something a bit differently was harder at the beginning of the year than at the end of the year.
The consumer adapted and figured out.
There's a mind shift change. Okay. And certainly when we're talking about B2B for us, I was going to the interior design, hospitality with a quite unique proposition with what we deliver. And at the end of the year, we got a lot more interest.
Okay.
And so that's been quite exciting.
Okay, that's a promising review on 2020. Not everybody has that perspective, I guess.
No.
But we also should add that Tamsin has been on the BBC before. So we're very humbled by a aspiring professional at the time. I guess you were interning.
It was a long time ago. I was an intern.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, we all did things long time ago. So, but let's talk about, you were in Beijing at a very exciting time back then. You moved there in 2004, right?
Yes.
So how did why did you move to Beijing, first of all? And what did you learn about the art scene at the time?
Well, I actually started going to Beijing around 2000 because I studied Chinese at university.
Right. And
so I was there for a whole year, 2000 to 2001. It actually ended up being about 14 months because I couldn't leave. I loved it so much. So at that time, alternative music was my big thing. And so when I hit the ground in Beijing as a student, I just found the alternative music venues. And at that time, in the student area, that it was largely punk. A bit of alternative rock.
Not a bad choice, is it?
Well, it didn't sound great, but the scene was so vibrant and exciting that I was hooked. And every opportunity I got, I'd be at some illegal venue down a back alley listening to some crazy Chinese kid shouting, profanities about political issues. And I was just absorbed. And so that was basically the hotbed of activity and creativity that I was participating in all the time. And from that scene, I met artists and poets and writers, and that was just like my happy place.
Okay.
So then when I graduated university, I moved straight back to Beijing with the intention of starting a business that would expose this cool, creative energy in Beijing that I thought the West didn't really know about. So my friends and family thought, oh, Beijing, that's kung fu and chicken and cashew nuts. Okay. Which to me, it just absolutely wasn't. It was punk gigs. Exactly, it was punk gigs.
Yeah.
And contemporary art.
So in 2000, you were then, so where do you get into the setting up your own business? Where did that drive come from?
I knew I wanted to start my own business.
Okay.
And I started looking in the music area. I started thinking, I want to promote music. get bands over to China from the West and send Chinese bands over to the East. But it was a bit of a non-starter because no one was really interested in doing that.
Okay.
And also bootlegging meant that there was no music to be made in the sale of music. So at a gig, I actually met somebody who was interested in buying a piece of contemporary Chinese art because it was becoming quite a sort of hot commodity at the time.
This was a 789?
798.
798. Was that going already? Or
it was in the very early days.
Okay.
No one really knew where it was. We were going to some parties there every now and then. But, you'd be calling your friends at the party going, where? I'm here. I can't really see much. I'm at this sign that says this, turn left or right. We'd be kind of guided down these alleyways. So at a gig, I met somebody who wanted some contemporary Chinese art, and I said, I can do that for you. And I introduced them to some artists and some artwork, sold a painting, and thought, that's a business model I can work with.
Did you get like a kick out of it when you closed that first?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course.
So the entrepreneur was affirmed, so to speak. Yeah.
I was alive and well.
Okay. And so I read that you were in a Swedish jazz festival. What is so special about Swedish jazz?
Swedish jazz. I actually helped organize the first Swedish jazz festival in Beijing.
Is it different from an American jazz festival, or?
I wouldn't say so, except all of the musicians are Swedish.
That's a criteria.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was as simple as that. This was actually before I started my business. I thought I should probably get some experience. And because my interest had taken me to the music scene, there was a monthly event called An Ear to the Ground. And I'd be at that every single month. It was sponsored by Volkswagen, and it had 3 or 4 local bands just up on stage doing their thing. The organizers of that, I decided to kind of sniff out and say, hey, I want to work for you because I want to do this gig. And they said, okay. So I ended up working for them, but my day job was really pitching events to car brands.
Okay.
And so I got quite a lot of, PowerPoint experience through that. And then the Swedish Jazz Festival came to that company to say, we'd like to come to China. Can you run it for us? And they said, yes, put me on it. And I said, great, but can I do it as my brand under my company and still get paid the same? And they said, okay. And that was the launch of Red Tea.
Sometimes you just have to be daring and asking the right questions at the right time, right? Wow. So that's a good start. And then you ran with it and organize more gigs? Is that?
Well, after that, I realized that unless I had some serious backing and other funding, a gallery was the best way to go. So that was the launch and a bit of the pocket money that I could put into getting our gallery set up. And we took the last vacant lot in 798 in 2005.
And you were surrounded by other local art galleries, or was it an international scene? What was the mix?
It was largely local. There were a few international kind of front runners, but mostly local, and also quite established, I'd say. You'd go into lots of the galleries that were already there, and whilst it was very welcoming and it was, great to see the art on the walls, the price points weren't sort of accessible for somebody like me. And so that's where I decided my market was going to be a much more accessible, affordable price point and more emerging artists.
Okay. And overall, was it emerging artists in 798, or was it also mostly established and then there was a couple of green shoots, so to speak?
Well, it depends who you are, really. Okay. I suppose if you knew about the Chinese contemporary art scene, you'd probably think it was quite an established roster of artists amongst the galleries. Right. But for a newcomer or a tourist to China, it would have been all brand new.
Right. Yeah. Are you still keeping tabs on what's going on up there? I mean, in the China mainland art scene?
Yeah, a little bit, mainly through auctions and my existing network there. Yep. I get sent a lot of artworks by artists that I might be interested in. So in that respect, yes, but I wouldn't say I'm proactively researching all the time because I've got a bit else going on.
Yeah, so I heard. Making podcasts or being on podcast is obviously one thing. Okay, so what does it take to run an art gallery? I mean, you kind of seem to be a bootstrap sort of let's get it done. But how do you learn, or how did you learn how to run an art gallery?
By doing.
Okay.
I had no experience running a gallery before I opened my own. And I took a lot of advice. I applied a lot of logic, and I thought about business models a lot. And I don't think I used other galleries as a sort of inspiration for how I would run my own. I didn't speak to a single gallery owner before I opened my gallery.
Okay.
I just decided that to keep price points low, commissions can't be too high, or the artist price of works can't be too high, and that we were going to offer something quite unique to the public, which is, the ability to get involved in something that maybe other people don't know about, which all evolved into an art fair, because I was programming my gallery through my own taste and what people told me they liked. Also keeping an eye on what's happening in the market. So if a certain type of art was getting quite hot, I might go and find an artist that wasn't known yet in a similar ilk. But we also needed to keep our great tabs on skill, technique, talent, because you don't want to just put anything on your walls. And then I had this idea of having an annual fair. So we would just get as many applications from as many artists as we could find. And we'd put 90% of them up on the walls once a year, have a 10% commission, which could keep the price super low, and see what the market did. And then I could program some of the gallery from that. Okay. And because I knew I couldn't compete with the big dogs, and I didn't even want to try, I thought my business model would be a platform, a stepping stone. So any artist we show, we have done our job and we can pat ourselves on the back if that artist then gets a bigger named, more international gallery. But I would have a little collection.
Quite a disruptor of your own, right?
Yeah, hopefully. But if I had some of their work in my collection, then by virtue of the asset, I can do well from their success with other galleries.
And the artist would stick with you, or is it sort of a one-off arrangement? How does it work?
Well, it depended on their other opportunities. I'd never hold them back from doing other exhibitions with other galleries. Some artists, we did a few shows. We only had 2.5 years of the gallery, 3 years of the gallery before it was demolished anyway. So, we didn't have the chance to have a lot of artists come back for a second or third exhibition because we had quite a busy roster.
That was 798 that got demolished, right?
It was just 3 galleries in 798 that got demolished.
You guys, we don't like. Well, that's unfortunate.
It was geographical. We were in the wrong place at the right time.
Okay. Well, you had a good time up there, right? So
yeah, we did.
Okay. And so how did you meander into this art consultant business? Is that with your experience as a gallery owner and manager, you thought, let's see what else is out there? Or
well, I think part of your role as a gallerist is it's selling art, and so an art consultant is selling art without the 4 walls around them. And without, I would say, without any particular obligation to any artist, because you're not representing any in any exclusive level. So you have the sort of art world at your fingertips. You're able to bring in artists that are represented by another gallery and present them to a client. And so that was a sort of natural next step for me, especially while I didn't have the 4 walls of my gallery and I was still figuring out what to do. But then I met Ben Brown, who is a very significant figure in the art world and has an incredible gallery, originally in London, well, still in London, but he wanted to open in Hong Kong. And we got on really well. And I ended up sort of, I'd say, fixing for him and the artist Vic Muniz around their China tour of Beijing, Shanghai and Guangzhou. And at the end of that trip, Ben said to me, "Do you want to open Ben Brown Fine Arts Hong Kong?" And I said, "Let me think about it." Yes.
Didn't take you long to.
Well, I made it seem like it did.
Okay. Wow. So that's a great another experience. Where was the gallery located? So
we were the first gallery to open in Pedder Building, because Ben had realized early on that the ceiling heights are really high in Pedder Building. And it's so super central. You could really appeal to the type of client that we needed to be coming through the door. So it was a perfect location, and that opened in, I think, 2009 in Hong Kong.
Yeah. And then you had Art Basel that came in, I think, 2011, 12, something like that.
Or 10.
10.
Yeah, it was Art Hong Kong originally, and then it changed to Art Basel. So we were there for that whole kind of rise. And the gallery was designed by Andre Fu. And opened just before Upper House, which Andre Fu opened. So it was a great time to be here as well.
Yeah, very popular now. Andre Fu designing a lot of hotels. I think his latest was
There's a St. Regis here in Hong Kong.
Yes,
Yeah, beautiful.
Regis. Absolutely. Great work. You work with him at all?
I did with the gallery, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's since then. That's
Andre, if you're listening, go call back Tamsin.
Yes, got some art for you.
Right. So now you've obviously fast forward 10 years. You set up or expanded Red Tea Group, is it?
Yes.
That it was called Red Tea already when you were in Beijing, right?
Yes.
And so now you're an art consultant and you're focusing on B2B relations?
Yeah, so fast forward 10 years, there were a few other, there was one other job in there, and then I missed being my own boss. And to go back to the consulting, I could always be a consultant on the side and in the background. And so I kind of had that going and revived it a little bit, selling art to people who wanted it, basically. And then 5 years ago, when we moved back from Australia back to Hong Kong, I knew I wanted to really revive Red Tea, which had never died. It had just gone quiet. But I didn't want to do it in a way that already existed, people already, knew about. I wanted to properly innovate. And what that means in art, I still think is under definition, because and as far as the gallery world is concerned, or even auctions, putting art online has been part of a necessary and natural process. But I don't see that as innovation. You're still buying a piece that you see on the internet instead of in four walls.
Right.
And then I did a commercial project and realized that the process of a commission and then deriving prints from that commission is so full of gray area that doesn't really need to be there. And I just thought about how technology can improve that and came up with the idea of Red Tea Multiples, which now fits under the Red Tea Group brand and is the product and the business I am 100% driving at the moment.
Okay.
And that's where I would say the excitement and the innovation is.
Okay, so it's a new platform, so to speak, that competes with traditional art consultants in a way.
Well, on the contrary, I'd like to make their life easier.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, there's commentary that I picked up from my network in design, interior design and architecture. It's very obscure what an art consultant does at times, right? And how do they price everything? It's very difficult sometimes to engage with art consultants unless, obviously, you're dealing with Red Tea Group.
Exactly. You need the transparency piece.
Yeah.
I mean, the art world is inherently, it's very opaque.
So what does Multiples do to kind of help make it less opaque?
We buy original artworks. And so the artist gets a sale of an original. I buy these artworks with the customer in mind. So we have a lot of abstract work because that's quite attractive to designers and large-scale projects, because you don't need to be kind of thinking about where the eyes of the face are going to go. Figurative is quite difficult to work out in these design-led decisions. And these artworks that we buy in our collection are digitized and made available through our online gallery. They're also licensed. So as a user, a designer, a person who's interested in art, you can click on any of the artworks that appeal to you and crop a section to extract your own unique version of it. And particularly for design, you can put your specific dimensions in there. So if you've got a tricky space or you want something oversized, you can put those specific dimensions in there, and then we create the print made to order exactly to your specifications.
Okay.
And so it misses out the back and forth with an artist, which is often an awkward conversation. We love what you do, but we need a bit more pink over there, a bit more blue over there. And that's not a conversation anybody likes to have. I never really like to have that because I feel like I'm compromising the artist's integrity. We love what you do, but could you do it differently? And generally they say yes because they want the money. Totally fair enough. Most of us do in business. But in this situation, they don't have to. They can say, go on to Red Tea Multiples and do it yourself. So no one needs to have that awkward conversation. No one needs to spend the time, and immediately in real time, you can crop that bit that you want and create the exact piece that you need across at volume. So you can actually do 80 if you need them, or 99. We have a cap of 100 editions on the website, but we also just worked with the Swire Hotel here in Hong Kong, and we did 336 editions.
Wow.
But we commissioned the original. So that whole original, and all the prints are entirely exclusively Swire properties.
Swire properties. And so your website, the Red Tea Group?
redteamultiples.com is this concept.
Okay,
yeah.
To see if anybody wants to check it out, redteamultiples.com for how many pieces you have up there now?
We currently have 55 originals on the website. It's constantly evolving, and all of them are available to crop and create unique prints of.
Okay, and if you're an artist, I mean, anybody's listening as an artist wants to get on there, they just reach out to you.
Absolutely, reach out to me and show me examples of what you've got, and we'll start a conversation.
All right, and while we're dropping handles, also on Instagram, obviously, shouldn't miss out. Red Tea
Multiples.
Red Tea Multiples. Okay. And there's Red Tea Group as well, I think, right?
Red Tea Group is the umbrella company. So that's where you can read about consultancy and some other projects that we've got going.
Okay, so that's exciting. How did you set up the website for Red Tea Multiples? I mean, it's technology heavy, right?
Yeah.
What steps did you have to take, and how difficult was it altogether?
This was... it's a bit of a sensitive topic.
Okay, well,
it was
all
not
have skeletons.
It was not a pleasant experience. The concept is so clear in my mind that my major frustration was that I don't know coding, because I just, I have a vision. I could draw it. I had all these wireframes made. We chose the wrong developer in the beginning, which was a huge headache, and it ended up being the largest stress of my career so far. We ended up extracting our website from basically these crooks who built a bad version of my vision and put it in the hands of beautiful, trustworthy, capable people around the end of 2 years ago now, at the end of 2019. And so by about middle of last year, we had something we could put in front of people.
Right. And
we've been working with the same developers to tweak and make improvements. And hopefully, I think by Monday, we should have, MVP 2.0, which means that we'll have speed in there, mobile optimized. It's been a hugely long process, about a year longer than I budgeted for. But we have been very detail oriented, and I have been annoyingly on top of the developers. I've learned that I don't think developers really like creative input all the time, but that's just the nature of working with me. Sorry about that. But we now have something I'm proud of and that works, and we can really launch the concept out there like mass scale. So this year I've got a lot of energy to go and get a lot of new artworks partners. 2021
in a storm. So what's the best way then to pick a tech provider, coder, developer? Is it referrals, or how do you find somebody you can trust?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I feel like my path was definitely complaining to enough people and hearing what their solutions were until I came across, a great friend who listened to my story and said, you need Vish. And so I went out and got Vish.
All right. Well, that's, I think it's from an outsider outside the tech world, right, as many of us are, it's difficult to see where you need to go and find the right support, because it's a very fragmented industry, right?
Yeah, I must say I did do a lot of research before I went ahead with the wrong people, which was a shame, but I have them in my back pocket. And I also am lucky enough to have two wonderful cousins in California who really know their stuff. Okay. So I am now kind of drawing on that, I guess, advisory pool when I make decisions. And I have since come across some other potential developers in my back pocket should I need them. So I feel like I'm now in a much better position.
Got leveled up on your IT.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get a CTO.
Anybody wants to be a CTO?
Yes, please
apply now.
Yeah.
So Red Tea Multiples was made for is innovation for the benefit of artists and art buyers. Where did that mission, vision, or drive come from?
I've always really, really cared about the artists. I've hung out with so many artists. I enjoy their company. I consider, a lot of my friends are artists. And I've watched how the industry doesn't always put them first. And not that a gallery construct or anybody is intentionally not putting them first. There are just many layers to the revenue streams that mean that what's left at the end of the day I think, in many situations could be better for the artist. And so with Red Tea Multiples, I was not going to build something that was purely going to be a commercial endeavor that doesn't do any good. What's the point?
Yep.
And so I needed to think about how artists were going to want to participate, because of course this is a new way for them to put their artwork out there. It is saying, okay, here's a license for just this artwork for you to offer that to other people to crop up and, you know, see what they want, which is disruptive and I think incredibly exciting. Many artists think it's incredibly exciting. Some artists don't. That's totally fine. But for the artists that do, they need to be able to benefit out of that. And I love the idea of, well, I think everybody loves the idea of passive income. But I think that artists deserve to get seriously involved in the royalty model, which of course has been working in the music industry for years. And so I brought in that royalty model into our print model. And so for every print sold, the artist gets a royalty. So they get the sale of an original, and then they get this royalty payment for every time a print is sold. And that keeps them happy, but it also, I think, gives them absolutely deserved value, ongoing value in work that they've already created. And it's a very business word, but I love the sort of leverage that comes from this and the efficiency that comes from that. And that's attractive, I think.
And scalability for an artist, right?
Exactly.
And what's your vision long term for this sort of platform? Where can this grow? I mean, you have it all set up now. You said 2.0 is there.
Yep.
Is it just a matter of getting it more known and out there, or do you have more ideas in your back pocket?
Huge plans, because the technology is a massive asset. So what we can do with the concept of here's an image, crop it up and create something unique, you can put that across many, many areas. So for hospitality, for example, we can create really, really efficient art concepts quickly and deliver them quickly, completely unique to a property. But what we can also do is provide licensed artworks on those walls so that the ongoing experience is still there. And I think this is really important for the new world that we live in. So if you are a hotel and you've just opened and you're really proud of the art that you've got around you, maybe some of it's originals, maybe some of it's licensed originals, and multiples have been taken from those originals and are throughout the rooms or the spa or the restaurants. The visitor to the hotel or the digital visitor to the hotel website can actually look at the art collection and open any of the artworks in that exclusive collection and create their own prints from them should they want to live with them at home, create wedding invitations out of them, beautiful mementos and reminders of their time there. The hotel can even create crops of that their guests have taken and give them, thank you for staying with us, little unique fine art prints to take home. So you can continue to leverage what's already been done with the artwork in your property. For the other ideas that we are currently exploring are with groups like the Hong Kong Gallery Association. So that is a huge number of incredible galleries that all have a number of artists, some of which will be interested in this. So this is a way for us to go from 55 artworks to potentially, through our branded partners, 500, 5,000. And of course, I'm looking at other collections that can help us do that. So we become a one-stop shop for people interested in art from all over the world to be able to get a full piece as they love it, or get creative and create something unique out of that piece. Now imagine if that was in museums.
That would be great. You mentioned hotels. What do you make of art in hotels? Obviously, I have a professional interest in hotels, also a personal interest, I guess, passionate, but there's always artwork out there. What do you think how hotels, the classic is a hotel room, you walk in and there's this sort of $2 piece on the wall, right? This was in for many years, that's how it worked.
Yes.
And it's just a space filler, basically.
Yeah.
I think we've come a long way, but where do you think we are right now in the way that art and hotels interact?
I feel like there are two camps. One is hotels, possibly from the owner or the designer, really focus on art because it's a great leverage piece. People notice the difference when the art stands out. And art that stands out is it is that way because it's been very well selected. It's also by great artists. It's good art. What we do is we put good art on the platform so that everything you get from us can't help but stand out, because the technique in there, the execution of the work is already inherent in the work. The other side of the coin is that it's a last minute, kind of detail. And so that's when the big procurement companies get involved, and basically you have designers or consultants picking things from the internet saying, I want something like this. I need it a bit changed. And you've got a procurement company doing it, not fine artists. I mean, a lot of the people involved in procurement companies are craftspeople in their own right, for sure. But the art hasn't come from within an artist's vision. It doesn't have that depth. And so I'm very much focused on the people who care about art for their properties, but that traditionally probably haven't spent that or budgeted that much to put into it. So we get clever with budgets to provide top quality, great visuals, great aesthetics, and also a little bit of innovation. So, for example, I'm very interested in looking at what either for a renovation, look what already exists. Maybe the frames are completely reusable. Let's do that, and we just change what's inside them. Or can we throw all the frames in a great big pile and ask an artist to make an installation out of that? Because many artists are so resourceful and so creative. What we're not doing enough, especially in hotels, is asking artists to provide their own thoughts of what can we do with these materials. And so that's something that we as a consultant offer. So I do think the approach that hotels takes is very much design driven, which of course is very important. And of course, Red Tea Multiples is the exact place you can take a design concept, not have to talk to anybody, offend anybody, go back and forth with anybody, and just go, okay, that's the right color. I want this section of it. I need a square. It needs to be 40 by 40 times 80, go. You don't have to have the conversation, and immediately you've got a beautiful product.
Right. And the same process applies to restaurants as well, you would say, in terms of how design is done in restaurants is very similar to maybe a different budget, right? But
Absolutely.
very similar to hotels, yeah.
Yeah,
same story.
But with restaurants, my experience has taught me that art is often last minute. And so there'll be this kind of, we're opening in 2 days, we need art. And sometimes people will literally just go out and shop for art and buy something that sort of fits. But if you give yourself 2 weeks, we can make...
That's what it takes, 2 weeks?
It takes 2 weeks.
Okay.
Well, for volume under 10.
Right, and existing pieces, not...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you walk into a space, can you tell there was an art consultant involved, or is it not? Is it more subtle, usually, the work that you do?
I'd like to think you can tell, but not everybody knows that art consultants exist.
Right.
I think I can tell.
Well, it's a B2B environment more, right? In that you work with professional real estate developers or owners of real estate, right? More so than straight to the consumer, right?
Right, yeah. And so I think consultants are very necessary because the majority of people I work with, they don't know the art piece. They don't really care about that. They just know it's important. And so that's where an art consultant comes in. But I've also noticed that a lot of the time, especially last year, art consultants are some of the first to go because it's considered a luxury. Because you can get art anyway without an art consultant. Interior design firm should be able to have enough taste to know what art is going to match or suit. And again, we fit in with that perfectly.
Have you been to the Painters Village in Shenzhen? Famous.
You know what? I'm ashamed to say I haven't.
Okay. Well, it's worth seeing. Let's say if you're in Shenzhen, you pop over. It's not really easily to get to. It's maybe 40-minute drive from Lohu or Futian. But I went there once. And I was like, interesting.
Well, I've been to a few factories in Xiamen which do similar things. Sort of paint to order, paint whatever you want. I'm more interested in the framing capabilities at Dafen in Shenzhen, actually, which is why I want to go.
Okay. And
also embellishment techniques, because we print beautiful works, but some clients want 3D. And so we can put some paint over the top. So you've got that real physical plastic, element, right? Which I think finding the right talent is totally possible to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you do sculptures as well, or it's not so easy? The multiples is just right now in print.
Not so easy in multiples. So yes, right now we just do print in multiples, but sculpture is possible through consultancy, and I do have ideas for sculpture in multiples.
A lot of ideas going on. Okay, so if we talk about experience, that's what the podcast is about. Where does art become an experience? How do you approach this to make art an experience?
Well, the great thing about what we've done, and a bit of a sort of surprise moment last year of we're already doing it, is the experience of art is standing in front of it, living with it. It happens to us all differently because we're all attracted to different things. But looking at something that appeals to you is the great experience of art. Now, we can enhance that in many ways. Living with it is one way because we get to, enjoy that every day. But it always starts with, traditionally it always starts with an exhibition. And where the exhibition experience lies for many people is different. Some, just walk around done. Some people can spend half an hour just looking at one painting and suddenly, 3 hours later they're leaving an exhibition. And, museums like the Louvre, my goodness, you could spend days there if you're me. Yeah. Some people they just want the 2 hours it actually takes to walk around it and then out. So when it comes to the experience, we all know what walking around a room full of art is. Words that I have picked up on last year from visiting, being part of lectures and, sort of self-learning in the art world are access, engagement, new business models, and innovation. And we are all of these things. And when it comes to the experience of art, this is where I think it gets really exciting. It's access and engagement.
Yep.
And this engagement piece is really difficult to work on when you've got a 2D piece on the wall. How do you engage with that beyond looking at it harder? You know, now you can engage with it through the Red Tea Multiples platform because you can open it up on your phone or your tablet, or even if you're not in the exhibition. So for galleries or museums, whether the doors are open or not, people can still be engaging with the artwork because we allow the user or the interested party to zoom into sections because we have super high-res images on the platform, but then decide what they love the most and actually be able to crop that and extract it and then put their dimensions around it and order it as a physical print.
So like a Google Earth or Google Maps walk around.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so whether you are physically standing in front of an artwork, and this is what I want to be doing with exhibitions, watch this space, is to have an exhibition, a conventional exhibition open, but each artwork has a touch screen in front of it or a QR code by the side of it, which opens that work on the Multiples platform and allows the user to create a unique print, but in a super limited edition. So maybe that's 10 or maybe that's 20. So imagine if you are, organizing an exhibition, you've promoted it in Hong Kong, but you could promote it globally and say at exactly 5 p.m. Hong Kong time, each of these original artworks will be for sale, but so will 10 prints that you can make completely your own, customized. Yeah. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And you have the whole world trying to engage to get their one print that's possible from that exhibition.
Okay.
So whether
the scarcity that comes in a multiple.
Exactly. Right? And whether the doors are open or not, the whole world can still engage. And if the doors are open, people can be using touchscreens, which adds a digital element, which, I don't know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Well, not a double, it's a positive thing. But how much more screen do we want to look at when we've got a beautiful original in front of us?
So you're still a believer in print?
Absolutely.
3D print. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why everything we do comes with a physical product. I mean, having said that, you can save these images and share them on your socials. Of course you can, because that's a fun thing to do. And it's also a very important aspect of it in terms of getting the artist's name out there and also marketing. But it's living with a physical product is what I still completely believe in. I just think we can be more exciting and innovative with the technical steps along the way.
So it's more what surrounds the physical piece and how do you engage with it?
Yeah.
And how do you market it and all that, rather than bringing technology into art or making technology the art, basically, right? You're not a big fan of that, you'd say, or?
Well, I am a big fan of it. It's just not my field of interest professionally.
Sure.
I also think I'm enthralled by going to exhibitions of digital art. I think Team Lab are possibly the best artists in the world at the moment. I'm completely in love with their work, but I'm not sure I'll be living with much digital art anytime soon, because I still am drawn to I'd say majority 2D. Whether I'm into photography as well as painting, but that's still my favorite thing.
Any artists you like, your personal favorites as artists? Who do you go for?
Oh, Rothko is my total dream.
Okay.
Yeah, dream.
None in here right now.
Not
yet.
Not yet. I'm a huge fan of Kwong Manchun, this guy behind me. He's a Hong Kong artist, and actually this piece has just come into our Red Tea Multiples collection.
Okay.
But it's exclusively on hold for one single project. So we will only sell this to one project, because I believe if we make it available to everybody, it'll just go really quickly.
Okay.
And so we want to give this little exclusivity to something that will really, really, enjoy it properly.
Okay.
Those are my two favorite off the top of my head. But I mean, I'm a massive fan of Picasso and
classics, so to speak.
What kind of classics? I also love actually some Australian artists. Julian Maher is a really big fave. Mm-hmm. He's an incredible painter, but then he's taken his technique and, like most painters, they start off, you see everything that's great about their technique because it's all on a canvas. And then as they get older, they get more minimalist because they don't know what to leave out and they know where their interest lies.
It's efficiency, right?
I guess so. And Julian Maher's really doing that. And I love looking at it.
Okay. And photography, it seems you're into cities or cityscapes.
Well, actually, this guy, Zhou Jun, we gave him his first exhibition in Beijing. And I just really love that he has taken beautiful black and white photographs of sites of interest. And his thing was always places under construction. So behind you, we've got the Bird's Nest, and here we've got the ICC in Hong Kong, both very relevant to my background. And he will look at these, take photographs of these construction sites under construction and turn the green netting that is usually on the scaffolding into red as a power statement of China.
Red Tea Group.
Well, red is China and tea is me. So yes, I mean, red is undeniably the color of China. He's done a really interesting series in Dubai because a lot of money in the Middle East in construction is actually from China. So it's that statement of Chinese money and therefore power going into a lot of the construction projects around the world. Okay.
In terms of a place for art, is Hong Kong still in Asia where it's at, or where do you see Hong Kong evolving as a? You're still here and you're doing art consultancy in multiples. What do you make of the state of the Hong Kong art scene these days?
I think it's vibrant, it's weighty, and it absolutely has an incredible future. With M+ opening, it's undeniable that Hong Kong is a really great hotspot for art globally, particularly for Asia. What I don't think it reveres enough or even has that enough space for physically is to have as vibrant an emerging scene as somewhere like Indonesia or mainland China, because it's just impossible to survive here. This
is a Hong Kong problem for emerging musicians.
Exactly.
Everybody, right?
It's very difficult. While there is great talent here, I don't think that enough of it gets to live its dream. Because it can't survive. Yeah. And I do think we can provide more outlets to that. And I hope Red Tea Multiples can play a part in that. Kwong Manchun is an emerging artist, and I think he will be fine. But I think a lot of his peers might have to pivot to make ends meet. Okay. And I think it's a real travesty, but it's also part of the harsh reality of living in a community like Hong Kong.
How do you spot then new talent? You need your own talent, your own sense to see, this is an artist that's because you've done it in Beijing, right?
Yep.
And throughout your career, what cues do you pick up, or is that too much to share?
That's the secret. I actually think it's an inherent thing. I think people in the art world have the eye or an eye. Not everybody has the same eye, which is why there's so much variety, which is a great thing. And I think a lot of people question eyes. I think my eye can pick up on talent, technique, so technical ability. And I also think I've got quite a good gauge on where an artist is now and where they have the potential to get to. And I've picked a few goodies in the past. Zhou Jun being one, Manchun being one, and actually Julian Maher being one. So I think that it's quite an inherent thing, but it can be learned through, it can be honed through learning about art. The more you know, the more you know what you're looking at and how to pick up on the right things.
It's a craft in a sense, right?
It is, but a lot of it's also conceptual. Artists paint what they often, what they feel and what they think, and most paintings of any interest have a story behind them. And sometimes that's incredibly academic, sometimes it's incredibly scientific. Understanding that, I think half the time you can't look at a canvas or look at a painting or an installation and know why it exists. But the more you know about it, the more amazing it becomes. And that's part of the talent of an artist. And it's part of my job to understand the 360 of why a piece exists.
So a professional question here. So we come across projects, real estate projects, where they say, oh, here's the art village. So somewhere real estate developers are trying desperately to come up with new ideas. And so they will say, oh, here's our art village or artist village. And they try to give like an incubator kind of model. Do you think this is something that has legs, or is it too contrived and it doesn't give... more sort of a natural environment where things can grow in in a natural way?
Yeah, well, I think anywhere that there is talent that can be supported, it's completely the right thing to do. I don't know how contrived it can be seen to be, unless it's just here's some money, keep painting. And we'll try and, leverage what great philanthropists we are. I mean, I think anybody can see through that. I think you do need an element of organization and sort of a proper platform, so that all the work that all the artists are doing can be shown in a correct light that will big them up, that will promote them properly, so that the community and the world at large can decide, oh, I want that, I'm going to buy it. And, where are the marketing channels so that people can sell?
Right.
So I do think that anywhere where this can happen, even if it is contrived, but there's money going into supporting and revering talent, it's a good thing. I think residencies, so a lot of these things become artist residencies, and then there might be a kind of community exhibition gallery or something like that, so the artist can be in the public space. But if nobody's really pushing that and programming the exhibitions and making sure that there is media coverage, it doesn't really stand for anything. It doesn't mean anything, and no one's benefited. It's basically money going down a black hole. So these philanthropic endeavors or investments in artist villages are not necessarily contrived, but they can often be wasted endeavors unless they are properly managed and funded.
It's a very complex process after all, right?
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily a blueprint model you can pull off the shelf.
Not at all. But also, I mean, these are also completely under leveraged opportunities. If you've got artists there and you have some money, there are so many things you could be doing. You could be putting messages out there for themes, environmentalism, or we're building a property over there. All of you guys should be making the art that we can put into our property, and we'll buy it from you. And there's this sort of beautiful circularity of a real community that's benefiting each other. You paint for me, I'll thank you with money, and we'll promote you in our property. That should be happening, not just, let's put some money into this, tell the world we're doing that, get some coverage and pat ourselves on the back. Yeah,
well, that's what often happens, right? So it seems you're full of ideas. I call it a relentless innovator. Where do you get your inspiration from? Do you have your Zen moments, or is it like light bulb moments, eureka, it goes off, or where do you find yourself most?
I think there's a lot of eureka. There's a lot of just looking at a problem that's annoying me, which is, I guess, time spent on grey area. That's always annoyed me. Looking for ways to increase efficiency and create revenue out of that. I spend a lot of time doing that, thinking about that sort of triangle of efficiency, leverage, revenue. And the good piece. I'm really interested in sustainability, and have been for a long time. It's a made-to-order model. I don't want any waste. I actually had a dress business on the side because I'm so interested in how to increase efficiency and production. And going over and through all of these issues all the time just spark new ideas. And then if I think that they're really exciting ideas, I can't stop thinking about them. And then I'm like, right, well, that needs to become part of the bigger plan. How are we going to onboard that?
And so sustainability, right? Champion of sustainability. The dress business you mentioned, quite innovative. It was a sort of cradle to crave approach, right?
Well, it was a total indulgence project on my part. I watched a documentary, I think 4 years ago now, called, I'll remember that in a minute, and it was about the fast fashion industry. And I was so just moved by this documentary. It was like watching one on, the meat process and becoming a vegetarian overnight. I just became an anti-fast fashion person overnight. And for me and my family, everything I buy for them and myself is researched. It's probably secondhand. We just eliminated fast fashion overnight. And then I started thinking really carefully about minimalist wardrobes and streamlining our approach to what we wear. And I wore a single dress all the time through pregnancies, breastfeeding, and then I've realized I was still wearing it after and in between to everything. And I thought I could make it better, so I could actually have one dress that I could do anything in.
Okay.
So the design bit was done because I, went to a tailor here and I said, tweak this, tweak this, tweak this. And then I decided I need to make this out of a biodegradable material, so I made it in silk. And then friends said, that's really great. And I said, let me make one for you. So then I started making them and I thought I could make a business out of this. And then I decided this business was going to be about how do you make a garment 100% positive impact. By that, I mean every step of the supply chain is putting positivity back into the environment and the community. And then I sort of wrote this ladder approach to how many rungs on the ladder we can get. And each time I change supplier, it's because I can go up a rung on the ladder. And at the moment, I think I've got about 46 rungs on the ladder, and I'm about 5 up. Okay. And then multiples took over, and I decided I can't really be doing that at the moment. This can be my lifelong endeavor.
Okay.
But that's a real point of interest for me. But on the back of it, I realized the waste in fabric that's going on out there and the value in fabric for many other things. And so this year, we will be launching our completely upcycled canvas, which is why on the website now you can only order on paper because it's biodegradable and we use latex inks, which are non-toxic. But when we get canvas on there, I want it to be our upcycled canvas, not virgin canvas.
Okay. And
upcycled canvas comes from retired linen from the hospitality industry.
Okay. Lots of overlap with hospitality, I see.
Yeah, my best friends.
Yeah. Okay. So on the website, you have a shop where you can buy the canvas, is that it?
Not yet. It will be coming. It will be one of the materials that you can select what to print your unique work on.
Great. So lots happening on the website.
Yeah, the website, that's all happening. But with B2B, it's all part of the conversation. So we can already offer this in B2B. And I'm most interested in working with clients who, in hospitality, who have this supply of retired linens from their bed sheets or their tablecloths. And now we found printers who we can be printing really great images with color integrity to create new collections, perhaps for the next property under the same brand. Okay. So then we can build in circularity.
Okay, very exciting stuff. How far are you away from that perfect dress when we come back to that? I mean, is it the 46? Do you think you can get them all the way there, the rungs on the ladder?
Yeah. What I'd like to do is get multiples up to a point where it is just firing on all cylinders. We've got a great team. And then I can maybe take a 6-month shift in focus. And then I want to find a partner to work backwards. We will create the ultimate dress. And then we will release the information of this ultimate dress took 500 people, 20,000 hours, this much electricity, this much, all of this stuff. And this is the net positive result, and just be able to list it all. And then we'll have a blueprint of how we can work backwards and where we need to focus. So instead of arduously going up each rung each time, I think I just want to put some investment behind it and go and blitz this perfect dress. And then we'll know really what we can attack and where the biggest issues are.
Sort of reverse engineer the process, basically. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exciting. So we're a little bit getting up on time here, but as typical segments in this podcast, your piece of advice for anybody that's looking to start in the art world, let's say in Hong Kong, where it's obviously, we talked about it, not an easy place to be an emerging art scene. So how do you, what recommendation do you have for an artist, let's say, or maybe somebody who wants to get into the gallery business or that end of the space? I think the art consultant need a bit more experience, right? So,
well, I think for galleries, you've just got to go and get experience. You have to go and do the hard yards, be the intern and learn. There's so much you can learn on the floor in a gallery. Sadly, they're not very busy floors at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think being in an office, learning about what techniques are now being used in order to get messages across to client bases, I think actually young people are in a very good position because they understand social media much better than a lot of the, many of the older people in a gallery, right, for example. So you're in a good position, but, go and offer what you can for, minimal money, but get as much experience as possible. Because if you're good, you generally get to stay.
Okay.
But good in galleries also means sales.
Right.
So you gotta be interested in that if that's the area you want to go in. And really, galleries love people who love sales.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about, right?
Well, yeah, the rest of what's happening in the background is, it's documenting things, it's accounting, it's all that stuff that you can be in a gallery or not in a gallery to do, but you get to hang around beautiful artwork. So it's a nice environment. For artists, it is quite a hard slog. I do think now you have to be really into your social media, which it can be tough and really not the point for a lot of artists. And I think you can be quite clever about where you exhibit. I think there are quite a few new refreshing models coming up, of which I'm quite a champion of, exhibiting with art in places that you don't necessarily need to sign to. That's very controversial thing to say, sorry galleries, and I think some galleries are realizing that they don't necessarily have to have signed artists in their stable anymore, but I do think you can sort of play the field at a time like now, and you can also maybe get brazen and start going directly to art fairs, which is going to really shoot me in the foot. Because there's a lot of self-promotion you can do now. And I think that part of this changing business models issue of last year is how artists can take more control over their own careers. Because conventionally, galleries do so much for artists. And it's true, it's completely undeniable. They invest a lot in artists and they get a lot out. They expect to get a lot out of artists, which is a very fair equation. But artists with social media platforms and in a bit of innovative thought and brazen behavior, which artists, whether they know it or not, are full of, because they put their innermost feelings on a canvas every day, you can go out, be bold, and just come up with new, unique ways to get your images in front of people. And that's what's going to get people taking notice of you.
Right. And for someone that's looking to hire an artist, they want to commission a painting, I mean, what's the best way for that? Do you go through an art consultant, or people maybe have a new home, they have an interior designer? Is that the way to listen to interior designer all the time? And what's the best way to find an artist that you can enjoy?
Well, to do a commission, you have to have a good relationship with an artist, I would say. I think art consultants are really good at that. But if you have a new home and you have an interior designers, some know art, some don't. They might consult with an art consultant, or I would go on to Red Tea Multiples and see what you like.
Okay. All right. redteamultiples.com. All right. So if you're now an art consultant, maybe somebody that has worked in a gallery and they think they want to become an art consultant, what does it take to pull that off?
You need good networks,
right.
Because first and foremost, if you're going to be an art consultant and work for yourself, you need to make money. So you need to know that you know people who want art.
So buyers, basically.
Buyers.
Yeah.
But they can come in all shapes and sizes. They can be your best friend with a new home or an old home who just wants art. They can be, an office, a small office, a large office. They can be hospitality. There are many places where you can sell art. But having that network, and then, of course, you have to back it. So you better have some good artists up your sleeve, and you better have pretty good networks.
Right.
And never burn bridges, because galleries have great artists. And a lot of the time I'll approach galleries because I know what artists they've got, and I'll say, what have you got by this artist? I have somebody interested. And of course, that's where the sort of chain gets long and heavy, but it's also how it works.
Yeah, that's a business. Okay. Last question. Obviously, you're part of that, but what's the most fundamental change in the next 10 years, you think, for art consultant space and maybe the gallery space as well, other than multiples?
Yeah, other
I
than
know
multiples.
that.
Well, it's going to be digital. I think that there's going to be a huge shift in the business modeling around art. Perhaps more transparency, not sure, but I was just talking about representing artists. I'm not sure if that is going to be as widespread as it currently is, because so many artists can take matters into their own hands through the new platforms available to them, and I think that's only going to grow. I hope that we'll see more innovation, and I don't know what that looks like yet, but if Red Tea Multiples is anything to go by, where we've taken an artwork and we're now allowing people to crop sections of it in a completely promoted way that is, approved by artists, and you still get an authenticated limited edition at the end of it. What's next? What can we do beyond that? I think art recognition technology is also up and coming, and that's going to be everywhere in 2 years. You'll be able to just put your phone over an artwork and it'll tell you what it is. And if it doesn't know, there'll be something clever that happens.
Hopefully it can tell you if it's an authentic piece or...
Well, exactly. That's the sort of art DNA that's happening. But my hope is that you can do that, and it'll tell you if you can make a multiple of it or not as well, if it's licensed.
There you go. Yeah.
So I really don't have the answer, but I think it's going to be a more dynamic space. Hopefully engagement will be increased, because the people have realized that without a market, we're nothing. And you've got to be accessible if you're going to constantly develop your market. And in order to be accessible, you have to welcome people in and have price points at every level. And that, I think, has been something that's been a little bit missing. And it's certainly something that's been talked about a lot at the moment, because you don't have the foot traffic. You can't put on the champagne parties to attract people and get them vibing on buying art. You have to open it up a little bit to more people and give them a little bit more. And I don't think once that happens, I don't think it's going to go away again. Right.
Okay. So unfortunately, we're up on time already. It was a lovely hour that we spent with you. Thanks so much, Tamsin.
Thank you.
Tamsin Nugent, founder and manager, I guess, CEO? Director of Red Tea Group and Red Tea Multiples.
That's right.
Guys, if you ever look for artwork, this is the right person to talk to. In that note, thank you all for joining another episode of Made in Asia, the podcast. If you want to check us out, made-in.asia, or you can also find us on Instagram under Made in Asia, the podcast. So thanks, Tamsin. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Have a blessed 2021.
You too.
All right.